Hello, agents. This is page 7 of the 1 to 4 family residential contract. And up here, we're looking at the end of paragraph C and the beginning of paragraph D. And I explained all that on page 6 because it kind of goes along with the escrow and all that kind of stuff. So if you have a question about demand and damages, go listen to page 6. All right. So I'm not gonna repeat that here. I'm just gonna point you to page 6 and then we'll go on from there. Okay. Representations, all covenants, representations, warranties survive closing. If any representation of the seller in this contract is untrue on the closing date, seller will be in default. Unless expressly prohibited by written agreement, seller will continue to show the property and receive and negotiate and accept backup offers all the way to closing. Okay. Paragraph 20, federal tax requirement. And this is something for you listing agents to pay attention to. And for the buyers to pay attention as well, buyer's agents. Because if the seller is a foreign person, as defined by the Internal Revenue Code, or if the seller fails to deliver an affidavit or certificate of non-foreign status to the buyer, that seller is not a foreign person, the buyer shall withhold from the sales proceeds an amount sufficient to comply with applicable tax law and deliver the same to the IRS with appropriate tax forms. So if you hear this, if the seller is a foreign person, and if that's basically there's a residency requirement, there's a checklist of what defines someone as a foreign person, but for argument here, we're not going to go into that granular detail. If something comes up that you're concerned about someone, then give me a call or call your title company. But this is a foreign person is not necessarily anyone who wasn't born in the United States. There's a lot of people that are foreign born or a foreign descent that are in the U.S. They're working. Some of them are citizens. They're on a long-term work visa. They've lived here for several years. That sort of thing. That's not defined by the IRS foreign person. A good example of what we're doing in our office a couple years ago was the woman lived in Mexico. And traveled vacation in the US, but she lived here and she bought a house for her senior daughter to live in for a while. I think they're in college and they stayed for a while. And she only got 3 years or something like that. And the summer guy moved on, so she had this house in Irving that she needed to sell. She's a foreign person, okay, because she doesn't live here. She's never really lived here. She owns this real estate, but I mean, you know what I'm saying? So she would be considered a foreign person. Now, so you kind of have to ask some questions of your foreign born people. How long have you been here? How long have you lived here? What credentials do you have? That kind of stuff. So you have to ask the right questions and not be offensive to find out if they're a foreign person. But what they have to do is file there's some tax forms they have to file with the IRS to find out how much tax that they have to pay out of from the sale of their house. And it's not out of the proceeds. It's the maximum is 15%, and it's 15% of the sales price, not the proceeds. 15% of the 15% of the sales price. Likely, these foreign people bought this property cash because a foreign person, as defined by the IRS, are not going to be able to get a loan, okay, here in the U.S. So they're not going to be able to get a mortgage. So most of the time, these are they're owned outright. They were paid for in cash. So if you have any questions about this, talk to your title person. That person can ask the right questions of this seller to uncover whether or not this tax requirement applies to them. And you notice that it's the seller paying the tax, but the buyer has to withhold the tax from the sales proceeds and send it to the IRS. Now, the title company will facilitate that, but it's the buyer's responsibility to make this happen, okay? Or the IRS is coming after the buyer, not the seller, because they live in another country, okay? So this is real important. Notices. Please, please, please do not leave either side of paragraph 21 blank, or I will send it back to you when you send it in for compliance. Okay. If you represent the buyer, you know the buyer's contact information. You don't have to put their phone number, insert the buyer agent's email address. If you're the buyer agent, CC, copy, put your email address in there, okay? Because generally, if the seller has something to notify the buyer about, the listing agent's going to notify you as the buyer's agent, right? So you can put your address in there and go ahead and insert the buyer's email address, because the title company needs this information also. But here's what it says. All notices from one party to the other must be in writing and are effective when mailed, hand-delivered, or transmitted as follows, by fax or electronic as a transmission as follows. If you represent the buyer, if you on behalf of the buyer needs to notify the seller of something, and remember, you write this offer, buyer's agent, and if you've left this side blank, where are you going to deliver that notice? Because you haven't provided any contact information, okay? Well, I left it blank. I was thinking the seller's listing agent would fill it in. No, it's your contact information. That contact information is for your benefit, for your buyer's benefit. So make sure there is at least the listing agent's email address on this side of this paragraph, okay? Have I made that clear? Okay. Okay. Agreement between parties. You check the boxes, the appropriate boxes of the forms that are attached to this particular contract. We've got a third-party financing addendum. We've got a HOA amendment addendum for property subject to HOA. And there's nothing else. There could be, does the buyer have a house to sell? That would be that one. Or is the seller wanting to have a temporary lease to stay in the house a few days? We use that one. Was it built before 1978? We use that one. See what I'm saying? So check the appropriate boxes up here. All right. And you'll be good to go. And that is page 7.